So let's start off on. We're going to start off on the U.S. and Israel and what Trump was hoping to gain potentially, and what Iran is trying to do with nuclear weapon, and what their kind of world situation is, and then what this might look for if this situation deteriorates. A lot of that's up in the air. So, um, what was Trump hoping to gain? It's a little harder to answer, but it looks like it was just sort of a distraction. And here is a big problem with when you decide to bomb a country like Iran as a distraction, especially with what you were trying to do with bombing their nuclear facilities. Um, it only serves as a distraction if you're successful, and it's a very high risk gambit because you've now set back any sort of negotiations on um a nuclear arms deal, whatever that is. That's pretty much that becomes exceedingly difficult to achieve. It's not impossible, but with this administration, it might as well be. Um, so let's kind of start off of like sort of the logistics of why they carried out this operation the way they did. Because there's a lot of stuff floating around and like so essentially what this operation tried to do is it tried to take out the nuclear facilities in Iran. There were three of them. The major one you've heard about was at I think it's I'm going to say it wrong, Fordel, and it's buried beneath the mountain. That's where their centrifuges are. And so a lot of this you're going to hear about is like it's about uranium enrichment. So it's like you can have uranium or plutonium, but just because you have that doesn't mean that it's enriched to make a nuclear warhead. You have to get to the science. Basically, it goes in percentages. Now, Iran has the material to it's enriched up to 60%, and to get it to the threshold of 90%, they can do that in a matter of weeks. So basically, if they wanted to, the fear is on the Warhawk side of the fence, or on the national security side of the fence, is if Iran has a delivery device, say an intercontinental ballistic missile or some kind of even short range missile, then they can simply just enrich the uranium, get to 90% without us having really any early warning, put it in a bomb, strike Israel, or not strike American troops over the Middle East. That's sort of the propaganda fear that's sold to us. And that's exactly, and all good propaganda has true elements of truth into it. Could they do that? Yes. Would they do that? That's a lot more complicated. Okay. So we've been kind of going back and forth with Iran, and we have a very complicated relationship with them pretty much since the hardliners took over after the fall of the Shah, and they got the Iranian Revolution, which was in the 70s, and then we had the Iranian hostage crisis under Carter, which there's rumors that, or not rumors, but there's a theory that President Reagan basically made a side deal with the Ayatollah or the Iranian government saying, hey, don't release the hostages until after I win the election. And then, I'll cut you in on a deal. Now, we don't really have evidence to support that. The government investigated it, but the accusation was made by a former Reagan aide, a lower level Reagan aide. Why I'm more inclined to believe that is simply because of Iran Contra. And so, for those of you who don't aware, that happened between 1980 and 1986, where Reagan was selling arms to Iran, and we were also selling arms to Iraq. Uh, that was more openly, but Iran, we were selling arms to under the table, and then they were taking the money from those arms sales, the CIA, and they were giving it to the Contras in South America to fight the communist movements going down there. Now, the Contras they had death squads, they were really horrible people, but we kind of turned a blind eye to that. Now, what happened was when that got all exposed, technically that's treason because you went around Congress, and a guy you may know who is on Fox News all the time and was the president of the NRA for a little while is Oliver North. So Ollie North was the guy who took the fall for that whole thing and didn't end up going to jail. So that's why I'm more inclined back with Reagan that with the I think there's a there with Reagan making that side deal with Iran. And that's kind of how we do business in the Middle East. We make deals with these nefarious people, like these nefarious governments, and then eventually they turn on us, and then we want to go to war with them. It was the same thing with Afghanistan, with Saddam, not Saddam, well, Saddam Hussein in Iraq, and Osama bin Laden, and Al Qaeda, and and the reason Pakistan has nukes is because of us. So, and Pakistan is full of Sunni extremists, and they don't get along with Iran, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So, there's always been this hawkish right wing in the Republican Party, some on the Democrat side, but more on the ones that are really hardline Israel, because Iran hates Israel because they've fought a war, a short war before, and Iran is also a state sponsor of terror. And I want to kind of make this abundantly clear. In this situation, in what I'm telling you, there are no good guys in this situation. Israel's not a good guy. Iran's not a good guy. We're not a good guy. Saudis, Pakistan, none of them are good guys. They're all nation states with their own agendas, their own things that they want. And each of them have good and bad things, just like any other nation state. So you've got to get past this really reductive sort of thing that gets into propaganda, like we're the good guys, they're the bad guys. Because you always see the Ayatollah where he says death to America, or when his Farsi's translated, you don't really get the full story. You get sort of the propagandized view of it that you see on CNN. So how did this particular thing come about? Well, there was a vote in Israel where they tried to oust Netanyahu, and he survived it by basically 2 votes. And so immediately he launched missiles against Tehran and Iran, saying, we have credible evidence that they are making a nuclear weapon. Okay. They've been you always get this from the hawks that want to go into Iran. They've been saying that for years and years, right? Our evidence with Tulsi Gabbard said, no, they're years away from nuclear weapon. We don't have credible evidence of that. The Israelis with Netanyahu were saying they do. I don't really trust the Israelis simply because it's very self-serving. It's the same thing why I wouldn't trust anything coming out of the Trump White House and Caroline Leavitt. It's very self-serving, And when you have a guy, the whole reason Netanyahu's trying to maintain power is because he wants to avoid criminal prosecution in the same way that Trump wants to avoid criminal prosecution for corruption and graft and all this other kind of illegal shit that he's done. So he's hanging on to power for that specific reason. So Netanyahu launches the missiles. And I honestly, it's pretty evident that he played Trump, right? Where he pulled the United States into this for us to come in on the side of Israel and attack Iran. Now, why would Trump do that? Well, there's a lot of reasons. There's personal and then there's sort of the political. The personal is he's a moron and he's egotistical. And contrary to popular opinion, he's real easy to play. I can't remember the piece Dean Blundell did a good piece where he talked about Canadian politicians and how they play Trump, in the sense of, at first, basically, you got to flatter them, you got to be really nice to him, and then you kind of float something out there and you make Trump think it's his idea. And sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't, because again, Trump's a chaos agent. He's not a rational actor, so he changes with the wind, right? But sometimes it works. And in this case, it worked for Israel. So Trump's an idiot. And also, he's desperately looking for something to distract from all the horrible news that's coming out. So the National Guard stuff in LA, the flop of the military parade that he had, the flop of the military parade and the No Kings protests that were massive. Because all of that in an optics thing. Now, Trump does know this. He knows optics, he knows advertising, he knows television. And the combination of that military parade and those massive, massive No Kings protests, they don't show a strong dictator. They show a very unpopular president that's barely clinging to power. A paper tiger, if you will. A strong man who's weak as tissue paper. So what's one way, in very simplistic terms, right, to show that I'm a strong man? Well, you bomb somebody or you go to war. They call it wagging the dog, right? Instead, the phrase there is, instead of making the dog wag its tail, you wag the dog to give the illusion that the dog is wagging its tail, right? It's not very convincing, It's like at first you're like, it might fool you, but it's like, hey, wait a minute, that dog ain't wagging its tail. What the heck's going on? So that's why Trump is gonna bomb Iran. Now, how is he able to do that? We have all sorts of war plans in the Pentagon just sitting around. It's scenarios that people have cooked up over the decades. I mean, it's from everything from what happens in a nuclear strike, what happens if, our allies betray us, like even just, fantasy stuff like what happens if Mexico invades Texas? What happens if, Canada decides to have an all-out assault on, up here? Like, what would they do? How would we do this, right? So we've done a lot of planning for those scenarios, and Iran is one of those scenarios. So really what you're doing is then taking a blueprint of these plans and then adjusting for circumstances today. So it's like you're basically going off somebody's older playbook. So that's already laid out, right? Now, the big problem with that is, though, and we'll get into this. The problem is with that kind of stuff, right? Is it's the same thing you had in Iraq. It's the same thing you have in Afghanistan. It's the same thing you have in Iran. The best way I can describe this, I don't know if any of you've seen it. It's an older movie now. It's called Crimson Tide. It had Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman in it. If you haven't seen it, it's a great film. It really kind of it's one of the better films to kind of really present a morally ambiguous problem on a geopolitical stage, accompanied in a nuclear submarine. So for those of you who haven't seen it, I'll kind of give you the gist of it. Um, Basically, Gene Hackman plays commanding officer of a nuclear submarine. This is it's set in the 90s, like after the Cold War. Soviet Union's fallen, and Denzel Washington is the new XO. So they don't know each other yet. So they haven't developed this trust yet. And the crew is all the same. A lot of them are with the captain. That's Gene Hackman, but Denzel Washington is new. And so there's a little bit of racial tension there, which they play up really well. And the difference of opinion boils down into worldviews. So the scenario is Chechnyan rebels take over a missile silo, old Soviet missile silo in Chechnya. These are separatists, like radicals. And they are going to launch, they have credible evidence that they're going to launch nuclear weapons at Washington, D.C., at the United States. So they are given the order to prime nuclear missiles and fire within a certain date if they don't hear back. And then, unfortunately, they run into a submarine, which is the Chechnyan faction also has, and they get into a skirmish. Their buoy's knocked out, so they don't have any communication. And so then, basically, the tension then comes from. I won't spoil the ending for you, but the tension then comes in where you have Gene Hackman, who is when I was in the Marine Corps, is they call him. He's from the Rickover Navy, and what the Rickover Navy was, it was from Admiral Rickover back in the 60s and 70s and into the 80s. That basically they are they're STEM guys. They wear brown shoes. They're engineers. They're just there to push a button. It's a very Cold War mentality, right? You are there to nuclear war happens. There's no thought that you were there to, do your duty and launch, because you don't know if the other people have already been taken out. And if you don't launch, other people in the United States are going to die. That's it. Where then now you have Denzel Washington, who sees sort of the bigger picture, that he's more philosophical about it. Like, what happens if we launch? What does the world look like? So we have to be very sure that this is absolutely what we're supposed to do. There can't be any ambiguity, because once we do this, we can't bring it back. And it's fascinating how they structure this in this film, because it's both men, Hackman and Denzel's character, really have it's really about what side you fall on, because both have credible evidence for it. It's not set up in a way where, well, it really kind of comes down to where you come down morally, right? Um, so, but the reason I reference that is a lot of times when these decisions are bandied about, the after is never discussed. Because if the after is discussed, you become more hesitant to make a decision that, initiates violence. Because violence rarely ends well. It not on a national level. And that's also one of the reasons I'm much more anti-war. The only even with my very vehement support of Ukraine, I'm very much anti-war. So let's kind of dive into why this was a bad move. Because when it happened, I noticed a lot of the never Trumpers and a lot of other people were like, "Oh, this is a great move. I mean, I don't like Trump, but this is a good move." And I'm like, no, this was a dumb move. This was really stupid. So I'm going to set aside the fact that Obama had a nuclear deal with Iran, and it was working, and they were not making a nuclear weapon. And Trump got rid of it in large part, I think, because of Netanyahu wanted it scrapped. because that sort of removed a it removed an enemy that he could use to stay in power. So I think Trump got played by Netanyahu back then, just like he got played now. Because while Netanyahu's a crook and he is kind of a monster, he's not an idiot, not like Trump. Yeah. So what what did this do? What was this supposed to do? Okay, well, they were supposed to drop these massive bombs. I think they're called MOBs or MOPs. So basically, they're massive ordnance, a massive ordnance bomb. It's like 30,000, and it's supposed to penetrate into the earth and then basically explode. They call them bunker busters. And the problem with the nuclear facilities that we really needed to get to the centrifuges, they're inside a mountain and they're way below the earth. And so trying to penetrate that and blow that up is risky at best. And if they've had advanced warning, which let's be honest, once there's two things that they got from that where the Iranians got advanced warning. One, the Israelis attacked them. That's the first one, right? And Israelis did not have the ordnance to go after those. We're the only ones that have that. So they might have taken out some staff. They might have taken out some surface facilities, but they wouldn't be able to take out the actual nuclear material, the uranium. They wouldn't be able to take out the centrifuges. You're not going to be able to take out like the necessary infrastructure to basically completely kill that nuclear program. So that's one, right? Two, Trump loves to telegraph what we're doing. The man has zero clue what operational security means. And if we haven't guessed that now from the signal chat leaks from Hegseth and JD Vance, who still should be impeached for that, by the way, we don't have operational security. And again, the Iranians have smart people working for them. They understand Trump. They have people working for them whose entire job is to analyze this fool and understand, like, hey, man, this guy might be getting ready to do an attack. I'm not even talking about spies in our government or having access to information with their hackers and everything else, things we don't know. I'm just talking about we knew bombers were were leaving Guam from the media 12 hours before the bombing. You can do a lot in 12 hours if you're prepared to move stuff. Like, this isn't it's not rocket science, right? Well, kind of is if it's nuclear nuclear bombs, but I digress. So they absolutely had advanced warning. 100%. Now, the problem is, if you're going to do this move where you basically bypass Congress, which what you're doing is illegal, right? You are potentially starting a war with Iran, and you are, at this point, cutting off all potential diplomacy in the future. You damn sure better not miss. You better take out these facilities. You better set their program back for decades. Because you're going to deal with the fallout of everything else they have. And I'll get to that in a minute, right? So, by this metric, was Operation Midnight Hammer. Good God. Sounds like a bad porn movie title. I'm sorry. I'll stay away from the blue stuff, guys. But did we achieve that objective? Was Operation Midnight Hammer a success? No, it wasn't. Because intelligence sources that have leaked from us, right? That came out today. Like the Iranians said this, and our intelligence confirmed this from CENTCOM's battlefield assessment. We did not take out their enriched uranium stores. They still have that. The damage done to Fordo's was just surface level. They did not collapse the facility. Now, and it could be potentially operational back within months. So you and they think the centrifuges are okay, which is what you need to enrich from 60 to 90. So in that case, no, Operation Midnight Hammer was a colossal failure. It did not achieve its mission objectives. Period. I don't care what he tweets, what people, what people thought, right? It was a failure. Just from a tactical standpoint, right? Failure. And anybody that says otherwise is either trying to hang on to their initial hot take, or they're blinded by their own ideology. This was not a successful mission. This was a colossal failure. It was what we like to call in the military clusterfuck. It was bad. It was a snafu. It's not good. So what does that mean? Well, we failed militarily on the strike. Now comes the fallout, right? And yeah, the launching of missiles at, oh yeah, it's Charlie Foxtrot, 100%. Yeah, damn right, TJ. You know, and the other thing that makes me mad, and Jolly Red Ginger pointed this out, or Jolly Good Ginger pointed this out. He said, like, our planes were safe in returning to Missouri. Awesome. Thanks, dude. If the Iranians want to make a symbolic hit, I guess they can attack the base in Missouri. Fantastic, man. Like, that's what we mean by operational security. The man does not have it because he does not care about our troops. If Joe Biden had done, or Obama, any of this crap, instant impeachment, which unfortunately today we have 128 Democrats that still haven't yet found their spine. But I digress. So, what does this mean strategically? Is this World War III? I don't think so, because there are too many nations that benefit from a weakened Iran. We are not one of them, but there are allies in the region. Their own allies benefit from a weakened Iran, and I'll get to that. So, what does Iran want with a nuclear weapon? Why are they so hell-bent on it? And why are we so hell-bent on them not getting it? Right? All right. Because there are a whole lot of other bad actors that have nuclear weapons. Russia, China, Pakistan has them. India has them. Not saying India is a bad actor. Not necessarily Pakistan, but they are run by Sunni extremists, and they are a state sponsor of terror. All kinds of countries have nuclear weapons that are dangerous. I mean, Israel has nuclear weapons, so from us, so that we gave them, so they can absolutely retaliate against Iran if Iran launched a nuke at them. So why does Iran want a nuclear weapon? Well, they have enemies besides us, and it's one of the things that keeps them from being invaded. It's another form of deterrence that we have in this world, unfortunately, which is nuclear deterrence. And that's why they want it. Now, are they going to use that, on American soil, that kind of stuff? It's possible, but they don't really need to do that kind of terrorism. The kind of terrorism they do is much, much different. So, and I'll kind of go into that. I got notes. So if you're seeing this white glows from my laptop, right? So first of all, who gains by us going into a land war or occupying Iran or weakening Iran? Well, everybody in the Middle East gains all around them. Bahrain, the UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Israel, all of them, right? Because again, this boils down to different religious sects from Shia and Sunni. They have not gotten along. Basically, like essentially what it is. It is um what am I trying to say? It is a dispute about who was supposed to carry the mantle of Muhammad. Because you got to keep in mind with Islam, the founder of that religion, Muhammad, was born in the light of history, right? With Jesus, we don't have a whole lot of evidence of whether he existed. It's scant. But with Muhammad, we do. So he had multiple wives and he had sons, and so you had different sects of who's going to carry that mantle of the religion of Islam. And that's where the different sects come from. Essentially, that's what you have to know. And they've been beefing about it ever since then. And a lot of times for the extremists, it'll flare up, especially with the collapse of the Shah, the collapse of the Caliphate, and which a lot of that stuff happened around World War One. So ever since then, and for the hardline extremists, sort of like how we have ours who want to go back to this golden age. You see that a lot with MAGA, and you see that a lot with fascism. Like for the fascists in Italy, they had a lot of Roman iconography, a lot, and pageantry, and the Germans borrowed that too. And they also had like the Siegfried line and Alexander, like Frederick the Great, that kind of stuff. It's the same over there, right? They want to resurrect the caliphate. They want to resurrect. I mean, a lot of that stuff is it's a pipe dream, right? So the big dog on the block for the Shia sect is Iran, and they sponsor a lot of the terrorist groups that they sponsor, and the militias and everything else is really about that sect and that sort of that power grab with that. It's a cultural thing, right? It's cultural hegemony is the best way I can put it. Because with Islam, the religion and the culture are tied together. So that's why that's why that it takes on a different tone than say it would the wars of Christianity when we had like the 30 Years War and the 100 Years War and stuff like that from history, is that takes on more of an ideological bent. Yeah, this one sort of takes on more of a cultural bent. It's cultural less so than theology. There is some of that. I don't want to dismiss that completely. So first of all, the Middle Eastern factions absolutely gain from a weakened Iran. 100%. Especially if we're doing the heavy lifting and the dying and spending of treasure. They can just sit back and go, hey, man, go on, United States. Go for it, man. We're good. You go ahead and take out our enemies for us. It's like that old Persian proverb. It's like, let the hand of your enemy grasp the snake. That would be us, right? That's what everybody wants us to do. And it's smart, if you can make that happen, because we far and away have the most powerful military in the world. And we have an idiot as commander in chief. And so if you can get him on your side and attack your enemy, fantastic. Works out great. The other thing too is if Iran is weakened, a lot of the sponsors of Hezbollah, the militias in Iraq, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Houthis. There's a few bands still left in Syria. What that does, when they diminish, payrolls go down, people stop getting paid, munitions stop flowing, all this other stuff stops. Okay. That in and of itself is bad because you don't know what then these people are going to do to try to make up that funding and that shortfall, right? Who they're going to sell themselves to and what they're going to do to make that up. Now, the thing you have to keep in mind when it comes to foreign policy and geopolitical space, right, is once you create this open space, those forces that have been pushing on that space will rush in to fill that vacuum. You don't know what that's going to look like. You can guess, but you don't know. So I'll give you an example. Part of the reason Turkey has not pushed in hard with Erdogan, Erdogan in the dictator in Turkey into Syria is Iran is propping up those last few, like that's part of Assad's regime, which has collapsed. If Iran pulls back even further, Turkey rushes into northern Syria and takes that. Maybe they don't annex it, but they definitely put in troops. They definitely become a power player in that region of the world. What that changes there, that's anybody's guess. Now, the other thing that is, let's go to Afghanistan on the other side, because you got to remember, Iran is big enough to where they're kind of straddling. They are literally straddling the Middle East. So in Afghanistan, the Taliban are Sunni extremists. Pakistan are Sunni extremists. That's why bin Laden was able to flee to Pakistan, right? So the reason the Taliban haven't wiped out these minority tribes and factions of Shia, like that, those Shia factions, is because of Iran. Iran pulls back, then the Taliban, with the help of Pakistan, comes in, wipes them out. Now you have the Taliban in complete control of Afghanistan, buttering up with Pakistan, who has nukes and who hates India. How do you think India is going to respond to that? Especially since they just had this kerfuffle, right? Do you think that and especially the guy who they have running India right now is a nutcase. That's their Trump, right? So you think he's just going to take this line down? You think that there's not going to be heightened tensions there if Pakistan looks like they're partnering up with Afghanistan to basically, threaten invasion or taking into Kashmir and all that stuff? This is the problem when there are not easy solutions to this stuff because you don't know where it's going to go. And yeah, you may take out their nuclear program, even if this was a success. Even if this is a success, these things still happen. And now you've made the geopolitical situation worse because now you've got this problem popping off in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and India, right? You've got two nuclear powers who hate each other, threatening war. That's a World War III scenario, potentially. You've got Turkey making moves into Syria. And here's the thing. Is China going to come into Iran's side? No. Why would they? They want a weakened Iran. It helps them because that means Iran then is desperate. Oh, hey, you want some support to prop up your regime to make sure that the United States doesn't come in and get cute? Okay, we want cheap oil. Give us cheap oil while we make geopolitical moves in Africa and Southeast Asia, as the U.S. is pulling resources away from there. There are no, that's why good presidents and people that, besides caring about the lives of servicemen and women who are going to lose them. When you go to war, people are going to die on your side and theirs. Innocent people will die. There's no getting around that. It's not going to be clean no matter what. You are going to cause disruption. Gravity is going to take hold. All this machismo crap, that doesn't mean nothing. Doesn't mean anything. So these people are like, oh, yeah. It's like, oh, well, you can take them out and then, we don't have to worry about Iran having a nuke. Okay, whatever. Fantastic. But what about all this collateral fallout? Now, I'm not saying that Iran is, somebody we should prop up and hold up. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is each move you make has a risk. It has a risk. And you start playing around with this stuff, you don't know where it's going to go. You don't know how it's going to end up. And the problem we have is we have an administration that, with Donald Trump, that one, he's an idiot. And two, he's doesn't even read intelligence briefings. So there's no way he has a grasp on this. And again, I'm not a foreign policy expert, but I'm not the president either. And I would hope the guy who wants this job would be smart enough to understand, one, the gravity of the decision he has to make, he or she, and two, that people that are telling them giving them advice, they can parse out, well, I agree with this. I don't really agree with that. Here's why I don't agree with it. I would much prefer Kamala to be in there. Like, because we don't make this move. If Kamala's in there and the Hawks will say, oh, it's weak, then, maybe Iran gets a nuke. Yeah, well, maybe they don't. Maybe she freaking restarts the nuclear deal under Obama. Maybe maybe that's Iran wanting to come back into the world because they're looking at, oh man, Assad's out of power in Syria. Russia's getting their ass kicked in Ukraine. Shit. So that my ally up there is diminished. Shoot. Okay. Israel's kind of occupied in Gaza right now. All right, the United States, tell you what, we'll let the inspectors in. We're going to stop the nuclear bomb development, but you got to keep Israel in check. We don't want no missiles or anything launched at us. It's like, and we take the sanctions off us to do X, Y, and Z. Maybe we get that. Maybe Iran comes back more into the world and less of a pariah state. And maybe that leads to reform in Iran. Because again, Ayatollah is old. That faction, those hardliners, what's presented to us in the propaganda is they're all one unified, big, massive, just evil that's coming to get us. It's like, no, that's not how it works. There are different factions. Like the military and the religious guard, they don't get along. It's so there's anybody that's kind of presenting you that picture is giving you a false picture of what Iran really looks like. And so do we take, with the end of their nuclear program, does that give the green faction or give the more moderate faction a reason to come more into the world, to let back in some of that modernity? I don't know. We won't know the answer to that now, because now what Trump's done is given the hardliners ammunition. Because before they could have said, "Hey, man, if we do this, man, we got to. It's like we need to keep the United States from attacking us because we don't know what they're going to do." Right? It's that fear of the unknown. you know, and so then maybe the inspectors get back in. Maybe they don't, right? You negotiate. Once you've done it and you broke the seal, you've broken the glass, the hardliners can go, look at you. What did that get you? United States, we didn't leave the table and they attacked us anyway. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we ain't listening to you no more. You know, you got to understand, like Iran has a global terrorist network. They have hackers. They could kidnap or kill Americans abroad, American businessmen. And the thing, what these idiots, these billionaires, and these dumbasses that have dismantled our government, that have dismantled parts of it, that have knocked our prestige down. There was sort of an umbrella, an invisible umbrella that a lot of us benefited from abroad because we were so damn powerful and we ran the world. You rarely fucked with Americans. You had to be crazy to screw with Americans because America will turn your lights out. You mess with them abroad. Yeah, at home we were a bunch of knuckleheads, and but abroad, yeah. Now, I don't know. That's kind of the scary part. If there's going to be retaliation, I think it's going to come there. Maybe blowing up an oil refinery, maybe a terrorist attack on our soil, especially if they decide like, hey, look at all these ice masks. Somebody put that on the as a tweet or on Blue Sky or whatever. It's like, and it's true. Hey, just run around a mask and put ice, run into a federal building or something and just detonate something, whatever. No one's going to stop you. You have to show credentials. We don't do that anymore. And the other problem is you pull something like this, you have to be prepared for the failure, right? And then you got to be able to adjust. You would have to adjust to whatever circumstances are coming down the pipe, right? We have a 22-year-old ex-grocer kid with a bachelor's degree in charge of our counterterrorism apparatus in the United States. Now, the reason he's there is because he's there to put a check on these various factions, these various people who have their fiefdoms, who've been there for 30 years, that could give Trump and all these other people heartburn. Because if you don't have a director, well, then you can kind of do what you need to do. But once you put a director in there and then he's giving the orders, it's like, okay, you have to kind of follow what he says. You can kind of go around him, but it gets harder, right? What can we do? I mean, keep doing what we've been doing, I mean, the good news is I should say the silver lining of this stuff, you can't really spin this, right? He went to war. He bombed a country illegally. And the mission was a catastrophic, it was a failure. I shouldn't say catastrophic. Catastrophic would be like that it shot down one of the planes or, people got killed on our side. There's no doubt Iranians got killed, but we absolutely did not achieve the objectives we set out to achieve. That's not going away. And no matter how Trump tries to spin that, it don't hold water. And the other thing too is like the sense of weakness that was played out with this parade and the No Kings protest. What he was actually trying to mask, this is going to just add, I think personally, I could be wrong. I'll state that. I think it is going to, add fuel to that weakness. I think, yeah. I mean, they tried to impeach him today. Al Green put forward a resolution, but 128 Democrats voted against it. You know, but I think as that grows, you know, as more comes out with this, it will lead to a potential impeachment. I think what they're I think what they're afraid of is they don't want to mess up because I Democratic Party loves to run away from showing strength. They really, really do. It's one of the things I can't stand about them. You know, um, like the Republicans would have already, if it was Biden and he did something this dumb, they would have already impeached him in the House. Like it just would have already happened. It would have happened today. You know, as soon as the leak came out, boom. You know, it's like they would have impeached him. 100%. Not us. That's just not how Democrats roll. But I don't think this is going away, especially as more and more stuff comes out. Because remember what we heard, like that was from a leak, which is funny. They confirmed it because Caroline Levitt's an idiot. You know, yeah, like she said in her statement, like, what was it? She said something to the effect of, "This mission was a perfect success, and we completely obliterated the target. And besides, the person that leaked this top secret document was just a low level staffer who's a hater." It's like, oh, so you just admitted to the authenticity of the leaked document from CENTCOM that said we didn't obliterate the target. Fascinating. So you just confirmed that whoever leaked this was legit. This wasn't some smear job. Awesome. Oh, I don't know. I think it's just if I had to hip shot guess, it's just what Dems do. You know, they just they're not they. It takes them a while to find their spine. You know, which is so much the pity for our party. You got to remember a lot of Dems in the House are corporate Dems. You know, so the corporate masters don't want to get rid of Trump just yet. Um, and you know, like for every Jamie Raskin and um, Jasmine Crockett, AOC, you know, we have a lot of Dems that are just, you know, corporate shills. We have those too, you know. I mean, there's over 200 of them. I could maybe name, if I really sat down, I could probably maybe name 30 off the top of my head. I mean, you could probably show me like 40 backbenchers of the Dems, and I'm like, I don't know who they are. Yeah. Um, so I mean, but I don't think this is going away. Now, what can change their minds, right, is if we get furious about this and we don't let up, you know. Um, if we keep pushing on these protests. Um, that's the thing. They don't think like, what's up, Morgan? They don't think that our democracy is at stake. You know, they just a lot of the establishment Democrats think that, oh well, our turn's next. And we just need to sit back and let Trump and them screw up, and then we'll be like we're going to be in charge. You know, so I mean that's what we're dealing with on that side of the fence. You know, and I mean you have to, like corporate media's. You know, like I mean you're starting to see a very stark contrast of there's we're kind of in a situation where we were in the Gilded Age, where it's like the rich own the newspapers, they own a lot of Congress, you know, but there's more of us. And so it's going to take political movements, labor movements, you know, people movements, a lot of that stuff to change. And it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take but it's going to happen. And you're already seeing that. I'm honestly the No Kings protest scared the absolute crap out of them. It has scared the shit out of the elites, you know. And there's other things that they're not thinking. Like, you got to remember, these people, like this notion that they're this Machiavellian, Lex Luthor types that have these grand plans. No, not really. They're greedy. They're short sighted. They're walled off. They're people, and you know they're not thinking about down the road and what again the same hawks that want to go into Iran. They're not thinking about what that like the ramifications of that, the circumstances of that. So that's kind of where we're at with that. You know, I don't I seriously doubt, we're going into a ground war in Iran now. There's no way. Not with this revelation that's come out. You know, it's going to be a mess. It is absolutely going to be a mess. So I don't think that I don't think we're going into a ground war with Iran. In fact, Trump has done everything he can to, like he's the guy that comes up to you. Like if you I don't know, for y'all, if you went out to a club and you were, kind of raucous back in the day like I was. He's the asshole that comes up to you, when he's mad that you, like, poached his girl or something, and he wants to run up and punch you in the back of the head. And as soon as you turn around, he didn't do much to you, and you turn around thinking, what the hell? Just what was that? And he's like, oh no, man, no, we're good, dude. I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight. That's Trump. He's a punk. That's why I call him punk ass POTUS. He's a punk. So is Musk. So is Teal. So is all of them. They're punks. And if you just stand up to these fools, they'll crumple. So Trump is on the world stage now, and the problem is all these other leaders, they got his number. You know, like they got a killer up north in Canada. Whew. Carney's just taking the lead. He's just like, all right, man. He's like, Carney's showing up on the world stage like, it's your boy, Canada. We're taking the lead. We're going to lead the free world, baby. I mean, meanwhile, Trump's like, I'm a big, strong man. I post stuff on social media. Look at me. All these memes people make of me. I mean, they're probably made by bots. So, yeah. I mean, I have no idea what's coming. Like, yeah, oh yeah, BB's a thug. Like, he is just, BB is an absolute thug. When he leaves, when he gets he gets pushed out of power, it'll be better. 100%. He needs to go. So, but yeah, I mean, so that's kind of what I want to do is just, like, you know, I'm sorry to hear that, Cheryl. Yeah. Listen, I mean, look, the thing is, you can't like ingest a lot of this stuff. And that's why I kind of try to, I give people context. Is a lot of this stuff is outside of our control. You can only do what you can. Like today, in Castle Rock, we had some dumbass special election about home rule. That like some rich assholes came in and pushed for a special election for us to, basically what they do is they want to circumvent state laws that Polis put in place, for environmental concerns, because water's a concern here. And basically they want to develop like a big luxury home development with a 5-star hotel, which we don't like. Who the hell, like, we're halfway between the Springs and Denver. Who the hell wants to have it's prairie out here. Who the hell wants to be in a 5-star hotel out here? They want to develop it because they want to get, basically what it is it's if you guys have seen the Simpsons monorail episode, that's what it is. It's just a grift. But, They spent all millions of dollars to have a special election to vote yes or no whether we get home rule, and they're hoping that people don't show up, you know? Like, you know. Yeah, that's another thing Morgan brings up a good point. Honestly, man, y'all, watching more news is like ingesting it. It's not really gonna help things, It's not well, let me put it this way, it's not gonna change things, So be careful about what you ingest. If it's informative, do it, like that's great. But only so much of it, right? Just to get a grasp of what's going on in the world. If it's incendiary or inflammatory, be very careful with that stuff, right? Um, and social media is really bad for that, you know. That's why if you see my stuff, if I write something or my purpose with politics is really just to inform and try to push people into being better citizens, or that's it, you know. No, I ain't gonna show up at your door, you know. Yeah, like I don't think so. Like I honestly think this administration, you know, like I think this administration is crumbling fast, you know, and like I don't like the thing about the reason my posts recently have been we got to hold people accountable because when this happens, here's like Trump is going to first blame he's going to blame the generals or he's going to blame someone, maybe Pete Hegseth. Like it might start at military people and then go up to Pete Hegseth. He's going to throw them under the bus for Iraq or Iran. But as the economy starts and here's the thing, there's things beyond Trump's control that are hitting the economy at a time when, you know, that it's going to hurt it even more, right? We might see a white collar bloodbath from just AI starting in tech, you know. I don't know how that's going to go in the next 5 years, but they're trying to replace people with AI, and it's not necessarily like artists and stuff like that's going to happen. But the problem is people see it. What's interesting now, from what I'm seeing in digital, is people see AI stuff and go, yeah. Like some stuff is interesting, but most of it's just like no, you know, like, and it may get more sophisticated, but like system stuff, data, data compiling, all the stuff that used to be done by humans in that one. Oh yeah. I've got friends that are in the tech space that made good money, and I thought they're going to be employed forever. They're losing their jobs. I'm like, I had to go to on a business meeting in New Mexico. Um, we're putting together a package for a feature film, and so I went down and bought some clothing, right? Basically it's just like nice collared shirt, blazer, pants, the whole nine. Uh, and the guy who sold me my clothes uh we got to talking. He was a computer programmer for 15 years. Just got that job 4 months ago. I was like, shit. Like, you were a developer? He's like, yeah. Like, wow. Systems developer. And he's selling me my clothes, man. I was like, yo. So, and Trump, he's just not where he was back in 2016. He's not as sharp. He doesn't, he's a known entity. MAGA is not as prevalent and new as they once were. And the people that voted for him out of idiocy are and getting their ass kicked. I mean, the people he's hurting the most is his own constituency. I mean, first rule of a dictatorship is because you otherize everyone else, you take care of your supporters and you sick them on the other, right? And then once that runs out, then you start unfortunately cannibalizing your supporters through corruption and everything else. And that's when you eventually fall. He's starting out hurting his own people. Like, okay, sure. And the reason that is because is like Trump is not a true dictator. He's not. He's just a guy that likes to pretend he's the guy who likes feeling in charge but not actually being in charge. You know, like that's him. So, um and you have different factions that are some of them are starting to see like, oh, well, like the ones that thought the tariffs and all the cuts are going to magically make us awesome again. Oh man, we're kind of screwing up our country. Yeah, because you're fucking idiots. So, yeah, he really is, Morgan. You know, like, so I don't know where this goes. I mean, but we'll see. Um, I still don't think we're at World War III yet. Um, anytime you have a conflict overseas, it's very scary, and it sucks for people that, um, you know, it really sucks for the people that are being hurt and killed by this. You know, so it never ends well. Um, you know, like the thing that I think is if there's anything that's even worse right now, besides what might happen to us, is what's happening in Gaza is genocides. Like you look at the Armenian genocide, you look at not just the Holocaust, but you look at like the Armenian genocide. You look at like, I think it was the Tutsis in Rwanda, that kind of stuff, right? Is that's the kind of stuff that yeah. You want me to tell you a story? What do you want a story about? I got all kinds of stories. So, I mean, yeah, I guess I could do a story hour at some point. You know, I don't know if you guys would like for me to do a story hour. You know, I've got failures. I've got I've got a lot of failures. Funny, happy. Okay, like a funny story. Um, let's see. I don't have it. There's no more happiness, Morgan. It's just bleakness. It's darkness. um. So yeah. No. I have to think about that one. A funny, happy story. You know. Um. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's funny. It's like you put me on the spot and I'm drawing a blank. Yeah. Yeah. you know. Yeah. It's interesting, man. It's like I don't know. You know. Like I was in like a real story in any vein. You know. Man. You know. Hmm. I don't know if I have real stories. I think I'm out of them. So, you know. Well, I recently went down to. I've been down. I drove through New Mexico. Been down there, and then I went when I was on my way back for LA. I'm going back for that. I was just in Manassas, Virginia. Um, watching two dogs and a and a three-legged cat for a buddy of mine who took his family on vacation. So I just got back. Yeah, the weather was soupy there, you know. It's interesting how things kinda hit you, like, back in the day, right? Like, because I purposely went out into because I grew up in East Tennessee, and, you know, like, I was talking with a buddy of mine, he's got 2 young boys, right? And we were out, uh, doing yard work, you know, and, I was remembering, like, you know, it was different because it's like the dad's really you know, attentive to him. He's very like, teaching him stuff and he's really like focused in there. And mom's coming out to check on him and give him like, it's like, you guys okay? I don't want you to get too hot now. It's like, I'm like, and it kind of struck me. I was like, this is not the way that I grew up. Like, I was like, hey, thanks, Kelly. Like, this is not the way that I grew up. Not at all. My dad was very old school, disciplinarian, authoritarian kind, Like he would bring up the wheelbarrow and, it's like, see that mulch pile? Yes, sir. It's like, I want you to move that mulch pile from there to there. Like, okay, get to it. you know, and I mean, it was just me, and I had to guess what to do. I had to, get my own water from the hose. I had to go into the house and make my own lunch. Ain't nobody checking up on me. Oh, we did. Yeah, heck yeah, we did, Morgan. We got treated. We definitely did. You know. So I got a friend of mine. He's just like, oh, that made us better men. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if it made us better men. I don't know. The jury's still out on that. You know. Um. Yeah. So like, nah. I mean, I don't know. Like, yeah. Like, I mean, happiness these days for me is more of like the absence of anxiety, depression. That's what happiness is for me today, these days. It's being useful and being purposeful. You know, I mean, really what I do now is just, I'm in a phase of my life where I got to make hard decisions. So I just make them, you know, is what it is. So I'll probably write a piece about that coming up, but yeah, like, you know, yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah. Oh yeah, okay. You know, yeah. No, it's crazy because like, I got my little sauna heat from Manassas, Virginia. And it's like, oh yeah, I remember this. Oh yeah, yeah. And then as soon as I got back to Colorado, I was like, it was nice and cool. It was like 70 something today, 80. I was just like, oh, Colorado, I missed you. And Colorado was like, you were gone? Shoot, bro. I didn't even notice. Thanks, Colorado. You know, jerk. But I got my vote in, so that was something. You know, um, I got to spend time with some awesome dogs. You know, that was awesome. Yeah. So yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at. That's where yeah, I get you, Cheryl. I'm going through that with my mom right now. You know, like having to make tough choices there. So I'll probably talk about that some other time. But yeah, that's probably why I'm just like my brain is sort of like, you know, dealing with family issues, kind of making that it's like, okay. Because I like, and a lot of times I have to be the one that has to kind of keep it together. I can't, I got to stay focused. I got to stay consistent. I can't flip out or, you know, really let my emotions get the better of me. You know, needs a needs an MMA sparring partner for play dates. She's a your newfie. What's a newfie? You know, like how's my mom? Not good. She fell again at the physical rehab place. They don't know if she's got neurological issues with her dementia. So, um, and we're not. It looks like she's not gonna be able to come back home. We just don't like. It's gonna be sort of 24-hour care. Um, so she's got to go to. It's looking like now because she's not even starting to recognize me. She's not. She's really kind of getting crossed up. So Newfoundland dog, gigantic swim. Oh, right, okay. You know, um, but yeah, no. So it's looking like, um, yeah, we're gonna have to put her in like a memory community or whatever they got. You know, so yeah, same with that. Yeah, Cheryl, I got it. My mom's got federal Blue Cross Blue Shield and Medicare long term disability insurance. So that's kind of why we're pulling the trigger now. We're gonna make this decision now before big beautiful bill comes out and cuts it in a few years. Because they always push it back. You know, so yeah. But I mean, this has been coming. Yeah, so it's been coming. The decision is just finally here. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's just one of those things. You know, I mean, yeah, fine. But other than that, I mean, things are good. You know, I get to walk dogs. I write, trying to work out a little bit more. You know, trying to do some work around the house. You know, like so. I mean, a lot of this stuff, man, we don't know what's going to happen, so you can't let it bog you down. You know, but yeah, I'm looking to do some more hiking. Hopefully in the fall. You know, I'm like getting into. I'm definitely getting into like this middle aged man sort of. Like I'm embracing it. I'm like, well, I could do some hiking in the fall now. It's like I got excited. I got excited today because there was a 9.5 pound pork shoulder for like under $20. I was just like, woo, yes, sir. And then I was like, it's like, oh yeah. So there it is. I It's been a long time. I hiked part of it, the Appalachian Trail, when I was in the Boy Scouts when I was about 13, 14. It's a long time ago. I didn't hike it all, like, so most in the Tennessee area, Tennessee and Western North Carolina. I didn't hike all the way up into Maine, or down all the way into, I think it goes, is it going to Georgia? I think it goes to Florida. I know it goes into Georgia. I think it's Georgia. Um, but yeah, it's been a while. So, you know, but yeah. Oh, I am on a live, you know, uh, I am on a live with, Gen XC with Lawrence and Fuson this Friday as of right now. I'm trying to, you know, like, yeah. So I'll definitely do that, you know, but yeah. So we'll see something, I have no idea what we're going to talk about. I guess it's effed up Friday. It's like, so I'm on that again. So I got to figure out something effed up. I'm like, well, I got a whole Iran thing. It's like, damn. I don't know if I'll stick to it's like Trump again. I'm like, shoot. Yeah. So yeah. But I gotta run, you know. Oh, yeah. We're leaving tomorrow. Yeah, Georgia. You know, I am a little bit of a bear, you know. But I am headed I gotta go check on some dogs. I gotta go get some stuff done. But I appreciate y'all for tuning in. And again, I hope some of this context helped. So, y'all, again, keep the faith, defend democracy, and I'll see you later.